topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Well, hello and welcome. Bill Martinez here, coming at you live. For more information on the show, you can go to billmartinezlive.com. I want to talk about the rise of socialism, right? So who told you? Who told you to hate America? Did you come up with that idea all by yourself? I mean, do we blame educators and professors in these liberal colleges? Do we blame our parents because the parents didn't really explain at the dinner table, or whenever you had the occasion to do so, to explain to your children why capitalism, why America, the great American dream? We celebrated this year a 250th anniversary of our independence and all that it represents. When was the last time that you even read the Declaration of Independence, much less the Constitution? It's an incredible document. Something that we've stressed on this show many times, and should be something that is revisited quite often. I don't know how you can read the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution and somehow put it alongside, put it in parallel with the Communist Manifesto, or that which is being sold to us, by Bernie Sanders and the Bernie Bros, as they're referred to, and how that can make sense. But I would say for the young people, I can appreciate their position and their frustration with the government. We've been saying for quite a while that the government has lost its way, that it is loaded with rank corruption and just all kinds of issues and things that they have perpetrated on we the people. And, there's a lot of blame to go around to where, the young people have been misguided and given the wrong information. But like I said, I think it's, it's a fair observation on their part, but the wrong conclusion. Because you look at the situations, which is amazing to me, according to this poll from Fox News, it examines preference based on issues. Okay. So we're going to look at the individual issues here. And regarding the economy, Dems are ahead of Republicans by 9 points, 54% to 45%. Okay. Now, this is head scratching for me, because we're still trying to recover from the economy that Joe Biden had all but destroyed. How he exacerbated the issue of inflation, how he printed up more money, which exacerbated inflation for things that didn't make sense. Even he had to admit that the Inflation Reduction Act did more the opposite. It didn't reduce anything. If anything, it maybe reduced some of the obligation that the Democratic Party had to its donor base. Because again, if you follow the money, look at where that money went. It went back to pay political debts that were owed as a result of Hillary Clinton losing so miserably in 2016 to Donald Trump. Now think about that. Why Joe Biden somehow felt like he had to repay the debt. It wasn't Joe Biden, it was the Democratic Party. And so they used our money and increased our indebtedness. Now we're 39 trillion and counting. Just an incredible number, to overcome, that puts we the people, puts the American people in all kinds of situations. No, it's no question. And no wonder affordability is such an issue. But if you look at the root causes, these were all born out of democratic policies And I say quid pro quo paybacks. The Democrats owed their donor base. And you add on top of that uh, the meddling of foreign entities who came in and who have captured, whether it's the Chinese, whether it's other, wealthy outside interests that are doing everything they can. And I'd say that they're communist based, no doubt, consistent with what Karl Marx had said, and even Khrushchev. Khrushchev, who declared, if you remember, he declared the demise of America. He said, not by bullets, but they would do this, one step at a time by capturing our political process. And the communist socialists have done this very effectively. And they've done it by giving stuff away. I mean, they basically have used the treasury of the American people, of we the people, to buy votes and to dilute the minds, especially of young people, to create dissatisfaction against capitalism, because that's the war here. It's not about the Democrat. I keep telling you, it's not the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. I mean, that's just all surface stuff. That's a bit of a delusion. It's kind of a magic act, so to speak. People want to think that it's the Democratic Party against the Republican Party. No, it's not. It's Americans versus anti-Americans, and what we have seen is this growing number and this sentiment of anti-Americanism that has come in, and along with that, it goes anti-capitalism, and it's amazing to me that you're forcing a round peg in a square hole and somehow thinking that socialism is the answer. I mean, even Ronald Reagan said, look at it, it's the problem is government itself, because government is outside its lanes. It has continued to grow and present to Americans that they are the answer, when in fact they are the problem. Like I said, I mean, for Democrats, 54% of them to think that the Democratic Party can handle the economy better than Republicans is absurd, especially now when you see how the Democratic Party has been captured, by the hard left, by the Democratic Socialists. I remind you, Trevor Loudon, who's been on our show many times, over the past decades, has been warning of the increasing growth and influence of the DSA, card-carrying Democratic Socialists, which are basically communists. And you say, gosh, this is incredible here, because here we are in 2026 and we go back to the 50s and remember, one senator who, took on the communists. And you might say, maybe he went a little bit too far, but he was screaming from the rooftops, and there was investigations. And it's kind of amazing, because this is on the heels of World War II. And you would have thought that we'd have cleaned it up. It would have been an automatic given. But what it was is that we, the people, were delusional in thinking, oh, that just can't be possible. Joseph Kennedy must be over his skis on this, in trying to tell us that, communists had infiltrated our country. In kind of much the same way after 9/11. Look what's gone on. 9/11, initially we were concerned about, Muslim activity and the attack on our country. And I would say that we were more cautious when it came to the Japanese. And we look back on that era and say, maybe there were things that were wrong that we could have done different, but we did something to protect national security. And after 9/11, President Bush was the one who instantly came out, all in the name of xenophobia and other phobias, that we couldn't be anti-Islamic. And he assumed that Islam was a religion of peace. It's not a religion of peace. He was sold a bill of goods. He convinced himself it was, but that's because people do not understand Islam, like the situation that's going on with Iran. And you've heard me say before that Donald Trump needs to revisit Thomas Jefferson and what he did with the Barbary pirates. He studied he studied the Muslims and realized that their ideology was counter all that America believed in, and that there was going to be no negotiating with them. The only way you'd have to negotiate with them was through force. And he sent in the Marines to resolve that problem. But here we are ignoring history and somehow thinking that the Islamists, the radical Islamists, have been modified and moderated in such a way that they are this religion of peace. When you look at what's happening around the world, what they've done, and what Iran has done, and even our politicians misunderstand and accusing this president of getting us into a quagmire. No, the quagmire's been going on already for 47 years, almost 48 years. We've been in a quagmire with Iran. We've been in that quagmire because nobody wanted to act on it. It was okay for them to kill American citizens and soldiers. It was like, oh, it's okay. It was only, a couple hundred. So no big deal here. They only, killed, a couple of thousand, 9/11. But somehow that's okay. Somehow that's acceptable. That number is like, okay, when is the number big enough that you want to do something about it? It's kind of like all the illegal immigrants being in this country right now, and how many people are being murdered. How many American citizens are being murdered at the hands of illegal immigrants? What's the number that finally gets you so upset to say that we have to do something about it? What Joe Biden and his administration did to our country is treasonous, in my humble opinion, in opening the border to where we have allowed, pick a number, 15 to 20 million illegal immigrants to come into our country. And the impact that it's had on our country is staggering. But, the left doesn't want to consider, they don't want to present that because somehow it served their means. Because you get a lot of people coming in who want free stuff. And what did the Democrats do? If you remember, even during their convention or even during their debates for the presidential nomination, they all raised their hands when it came to giving illegal immigrants free stuff. I mean, forget about amnesty. I mean, let's going to give them free healthcare. We're giving them free education. We're giving them free everything. Well, think about what that does. It establishes a mindset that's established a mindset already that gave the left a beachhead, a landing zone, because they have been for decades giving away free stuff. And so it's no wonder, it shouldn't be any big surprise that the young people of America think that, hey, free stuff abounds. America is selfish. It has all the wealth here. We've got billionaires, that exist. And it's not like they were just all of a sudden they went to the treasury and took money out. They did this on merit for the most part. They created businesses. This is what capitalism does. It creates. Big government comes in and steals. That's all they know. That's what they do. And it's surprising that here we are watching big government once again, when it wasn't that long ago, when a Democrat president, Bill Clinton, made the announcement that the era of big government was over. I got to imagine those that were in the back rooms and heard that just kind of laughed, said, okay, we'll let them think so. We'll let them delude themselves. So while they think the era of big government is over, big government will operate in the shadows, and we will continue to progress and capture ground here in America to the point that we can call the question on capitalism. And the left has done a good job in creating dissatisfaction and blaming. I mean, this is what the left does, whether it's, the race card that they've used, anything that they can use against we the people, to create dissatisfaction and to create this cultural war that they've been very effective in doing, pitting us against them, ununiting us, right? We've this idea of the United States of America is almost, it's becoming a faint memory because we're so divided. But look at this. I think I was amazed at considering this number. In 2016, it was estimated that Bernie Sanders and his as an independent, okay, he's not even a Democrat, but he ran, in the Democratic campaigns and ran as for a presidential position as a Democrat, though he was an independent. And at the time, he had about 6,000 members. 6,000 members. But you got to hand it to Bernie Sanders, because what he was able to do, he leveraged 6,000 members to have an impact and influence in the Democratic Party ever so subtly. I mean, think about this. Hillary Clinton is running for president. She's the runaway candidate, but Bernie Sanders is there mounting up numbers and, collecting electoral votes and putting a lot of misery into the Hillary Clinton camp. So here it comes down to California, if you remember. And all of a sudden, right before the voting in California, very suspiciously, the Democrats come up with a number and say, hey, our super delegates already, you count them up, and Hillary Clinton is in. I mean, all of a sudden, they just declared this out of nowhere. There was no vote that happened in California even before that vote took place. All of a sudden, these numbers, you had a recount. And so hanging chads and everything else, they found some more hanging chads, leave it to the Democrats. They know how to, like one communist had said, it's not about who votes, it's who counts. And so the Democrats and Hillary Clinton apparatchik counted the votes going into California that looked very favorable for Bernie Sanders, as you might recall. And suddenly Bernie Sanders is out. And I thought, this is quite interesting, because the way they kicked him to the curb, and it just seemed like a coup in and of itself. And it was all very quiet. And you go, okay, what's all this about? What's behind the veiled curtain here? Okay. And of course, what was behind was a secret deal that was made in the back rooms, smoke or no smoke. But regardless, it was made in the back rooms that quieted Bernie Sanders. And so somehow he got his way, and he got enough to be quiet and to figure out, okay, his day will be deferred, that maybe timing was not exactly right, but that he could revisit this issue. Well, guess what? Now he's coming out full force. He's got all the Democratic Socialists. They're all out of the closet. You should not be surprised. Okay. The communists are here. Okay. Paul Revere is out there. They're not coming. They are here now. Okay. And they're out of the closet in full force. And what's amazing to me is the membership of the DSA back in 2016 was about 6,000 members. Today, it's estimated to be 120,000 members. 120,000 members. Now think about that number. 120,000 members is all it has taken to capture the Democratic Party. A loud minority people of communists have captured the Democratic Party, and look at their impact that they're having on America. I just mentioned the economy. Regarding inflation, which is a joke to me, according to this poll, inflation, which was caused by the Democrats. Yes, there's some Republican interference in there. Well, but most recently, certainly in the Biden years and also during the Obama years, contributed greatly to the inflation issues that we're dealing with, that Donald Trump is trying to overcome. I mean, this has been well entrenched. So it was nothing that was going to happen overnight. There was no fix that was going to be. All you could do was look and see what was happening, whether it was the big, beautiful bill, tariff propositions, which the courts didn't like. And of course, Congress did no favors for the American people in coming together to do something about tariffs that would make it legal so that we could do something about it. Remember, tariffs was instrumental in the early years of our government. That's how we ran the government. We didn't have taxes. We said, look, we've got a great country here. We got a lot of consumers. You want to deal with us. And we weren't 350 million strong at the time, but we were strong enough, and it was quite appealing for countries to want to do business with us. So we had some smart politicians at the time and business people at the time who said, okay, well, we're going to charge you a fee. And it was on that fee and tariff money that we were able to run the country very well, thank you, until, you know, we get into the 20th century. And of course, these geniuses were always around. They just could not stand to have people think that they could be free and that they could be responsible for themselves and be able to manage their own money. No, you needed an elite group of people who knew better, because the American people in large and mass are too stupid, which is amazing to me when you consider that maybe 1,000 government elites, if you put the bigger number on it, that somehow their cumulative intelligence is greater than the intelligence of 350 million people. Now, keep in mind, Elon Musk, now a trillionaire, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, didn't come out of the government, right? I mean, the thing that comes out of the government are people who steal and can cheat and make big money with insider trading, and you know who they are. And it's amazing to me that whenever you talk about insider trading, you know it's so evil, first of all, on its face, to be able to get away with this. And whenever there's legislation that is before, the House and the Senate to curb this issue, oh my goodness, do they go in the fetal position? And you can tell, it's like the old saying, you can tell when you're over the target, the flack comes in, right? And there's all kinds of flack that comes over whenever we get over that target. Oh, they'll fight that tooth and nail. And they continue to drag this out and get away with it. And somehow even the ethics committee finds a way to justify and say that it's okay, which it should be an automatic no-brainer. But again, this gives rise to why term limits should be most important, along with insider trading being a clear violation, and something to me that is so self-serving. You know how these people can say, "Oh, we're serving the public." No, you're serving yourselves, and this is the way the system is set up. You've heard me say time and again, these politicians, when they get elected, one of the first things they do when they go to orientation, they're told what the rules are. It's not about their constituency. Their number one job is to get reelected. And how do you get reelected? You need money. And so you got to go to K Street, you got to go to these lobbyists. And each time, and with each connection with outside money, a little bit more and more of your ethos and your integrity goes out the door. And this is the way the system works. And we're setting up our politicians. This is supposed to be a government of, for, by, we the people. Well, we the people, we're part and parcel of this problem. We're a big part of the problem because we have acquiesced. We have surrendered our authority. Our authority is, we're the ones. We're the owners of this government. We're the chief executive officers, not Donald Trump, not Nancy Pelosi, not Hakeem Jeffries, not Chuck Schumer. Go down the list. They're not in charge. We are in charge. This is why the consent of the governed is absolutely foundational and critical. And thank God for Donald Trump keeping the pressure on Congress to pass the SAVE Act. We got problems. I mean, for all the issues that have come out, every time a Republican is interviewed in the mainstream, call it the lamestream media, one of the questions that come up repeatedly is that, do you not believe that Joe Biden was the legitimate, president of the United States based on the 2020 election? I mean, it's a gotcha question on the face. 63%, and they might be 66% of Americans to this day do not believe that the 2020 election was legitimate. They believe it was compromised. And all the information, all the arguments in court and elsewhere that have been brought forward, but particularly the courts, they don't want to hear it. It's all by technicality that it's thrown out of court. They just don't want to deal with it. But it won't go away. Just like the question of the JFK assassination that we've been dealing with for how many decades now, right? Because on its face, people know that it's bogus. The Warren Commission was off, that we didn't get the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but we're all called conspiratists because we have doubts about it. We have doubts about a president's birth certificate. Well, why do we have doubts of a president's birth certificate? Because the birth certificate that was presented is phony, it's bogus. But you can't talk about that, because you're a racist if you do. But see, all these little lies, what the Bible would call the little foxes that chew at the root of the integrity of whether it's a tree, whether it's a harvest, whatever it is, it's what chews away and erodes the foundation, the integrity, the standing of the organization. And unfortunately, 250 years later, we've accumulated lots of little foxes that are tearing away at the foundation of this country. So it's no wonder that these young people are thinking, okay, well, yeah, this is a problem. But instead of fixing the problem, they really want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Professors in these elite colleges who have been indoctrinating our kids come in with half truths. And of course, you're not allowed to exercise critical thinking. If you are, you're maligned, you're chastised and invalidated. Okay, we don't need you in the classroom. You're going to get, forget about your straight A, your 4.0, that's going to get compromised real quick because, your grade point average is more important than anything else. So what do you have to do? You have to sell yourself out and you got to go along. And then, parents who send these kids to these very expensive universities for their children to be indoctrinated. And it doesn't take long. I mean, by the first Thanksgiving, when they come home, the parents go, oh, man, we can't even deal with this. What happened? What happened to our kid? In a couple of months, they've been indoctrinated. And I saw this even as, as I was going to college, and friends that I knew and went to high school with, and they were going to UCSB in Santa Barbara, California. And the first time we got together, and some of the stuff they came up with was just totally wacky. And I wasn't even so much of at that time, thinking, that I was particularly conservative or whatever political ilk I had. I just knew the stuff that they were saying was goofy. And of course, we were in the, we were basically in the height of the Vietnam War at the time, and other issues, as you recall, already dealing with already the assassination of of a president. And then, of course, later on, the assassination of his brother and Martin Luther King. I mean, it was a mess that we were in, but we were able to, regain our footing. And even as bleak as it looks right now, I have to say to you, I still have faith. I maintain faith in the American people. And those voices are being shouted out. And keep in mind the number, like I shared with you, only 120,000 members are, the DSA are creating all this havoc and all this dissatisfaction. Only 120,000. Look what's happened in Minneapolis. I remind you, it's not, it's not even 1 million people in Minneapolis. Some 82,000 Somalis have really hijacked the entire state. Think about that. It's just insane. So the silent majority, which Jerry Falwell had referred to, if you remember, back in the end of the previous century, that the silent majority had to step up. Their voices had to be heard, and they came out. And again, I say, the people who are the heart and soul of America, that understand capitalism, that have been living it for generations, and they didn't have to go to school and be indoctrinated to think differently. They were here just living life and realizing what godly principles have done, and how when we honor God, God honors this country. God's very clear about that. Blessed is the nation who follow the laws of their God. And this country has been so blessed from its origination. and we're celebrating 250 years of the Declaration of Independence. And, and you look back this rich history and you think, wow, uh, how blessed we are to be born in this country. And what a tragedy it would be if somehow, in some way, a small minority of dissatisfied constituents, based on emotion, not even empirical evidence, because when you look at the empirical evidence and you see that they are dissatisfied based on sleight of hand, kabuki theater, and a false narrative here, a big lie, just like the 1619 Project. Something that has been disclaimed, but something was honored. We got to give them, we got to give her a Nobel Peace Prize. It's just insane, or a Pulitzer. I'm sorry, and but this is how deluded we are. We've abandoned the truth, and because at the core of it, we've abandoned who was the basis and the source of our blessing. God himself, as we become more and more secular. I mean, here we are, the latest survey, you got, what is it? About 46% of Americans hate America. I mean, they're anti-American. That's why I said it's not about the Democrats, Republicans anymore. It's about America or anti-Americans. Okay. And here's the divide that what we're dealing with. And according again to this poll regarding healthcare, this is what blows me away. Regarding healthcare, the Dems feel like 60%, or the voting people believe that the Dems are better at healthcare. But I mean, it's almost twice the number that they have for Republicans. Okay, Donald Trump's been trying to fix healthcare, and no question, we go back and we feel the effect of John McCain putting his thumb down when the Republican Party sold the American people on the desire to do away with Obamacare. Obamacare is a bummer. I called it Obamacare, and it just was terrible from the very beginning. It was a hijacking of our healthcare. A fifth of our economy. And we surrendered it to Barack Obama, who lied 3 ways to Sunday about it. And the Democrats, all the Democrats supported it. And so the healthcare problems we have today were originated by the Democrats. But yet 60% of the American people, according to this poll, have more confidence in the Dems managing our healthcare. Hoy. I mean, what are you aiming for? European healthcare that puts you in a queue, that if you have a problem with your health, then you're going to have to wait. I mean, and a story similar you hear time and time again. A dear friend of mine, one of my best friends in California, his daughter was diagnosed with cancer. She's in England and diagnosed with cancer. And so she calls home, says, Dad, look at, I'm sick. And the information came back and says, I have cancer. And Dad says, okay, well, what's going to happen? You got healthcare, national healthcare. Well, they said that I've got to get in line and they'll be able to deal with me in about 3 years. What? 3 years? I mean, seriously. I mean, this happens time and again. I know it's hard for some people to get their brain around, but this is how they operate. These European countries, Canada, same way, get in line, 3 years. He goes, no, you're coming home. Thank God, she's still a citizen and they had the ability to bring her back home and take care of the issue. And she's doing well. She's recovered. But God only knows if she had to wait for 3 years, how that cancer could have potentially metastasized. It could have been, you're sitting there just waiting. And then you got, like you said, what's happening in Canada with their healthcare system. I mean, it's like some of these Democrats, it's like you're ludicrous. You are going to surrender your healthcare. I mean, we've already surrendered so much. And then look at Obamacare, what it is. It's on life support. And the only thing that's keeping Obamacare, operating is our treasury. We're paying for it. And so here it is for, remember, they said we've got 30 million people that do not have health care in the country. And so for that 30 million people, we upend the system of employee paid health care, a great system. The doctors that we had, everything was set up. Obamacare comes in, turns it on its head, and forget about the doctor that you had, because many doctors said, I'm out of here, I'm retiring. And they did. And so we didn't get to keep the same doctor. We certainly didn't pay less. We paid more. And if you remember, when President Obama had presented this in the State of the Union, it was Joe Wilson who said, when the president was talking about it, that it wouldn't be available to illegal immigrants. And Joe Wilson and everybody in that room knew that that was a lie. But Joe Wilson, out of a guttural response, I believe it was guttural. I just think he couldn't help himself. The president blatantly lied to the American people, which is not the first time. But I think the only truthful thing that Barack Obama said was that when he talked about the fundamental change of our country, remember? He said, we're entering this era, the fundamental change of America. That was the only thing he didn't lie about. He was honest about that. It wasn't real honest in terms of saying what things need to happen in order to fundamentally change our country. But basically, it's where we are today. He was announcing a democratic socialist movement, but he didn't even have the integrity to come out and be honest about it. Of course, now they're out of the closet and they're just saying, okay, yeah, we're democratic socialists. I think it's interesting that they've hijacked the term even Democrat. But, it's all a ruse, a sleight of hand. I mean, they're socialists, which, they might as well be communists, because that's what it is. Because everything that they want to do, they want to seize the entire means of production. And what their vision is and what it will do, it will mediocritize America. It will reduce us to its lowest common denominator. Think about that. Our GDP, our debt, here they are. They're taking over a country that is $39 trillion in debt already. And their answer is, we're going to go and capture all the money of these wealthy billionaires, which they know the math. They know that even if they captured everybody's money, it might pay for a year's worth of government. That's it. So then what's going to happen afterward? Think about it. After, the government grocery stores have empty shelves, free buses aren't running, all these, these slums and the slumlords that have been created, by the democratic socialists with freezing the rent. And meanwhile, the cost of running these operations continue to increase. Well, how are these landlords supposed to pay for it? Just out of their money? Out of their own pockets, write their own check? Yeah, according to the socialists. That's what they're supposed to do until they get to that point to cry uncle, and then they surrender their property to the government. Just say, I can't sustain this anymore. I'm cutting my losses. Here, Mom Donnie, here, it's yours. You can have it. And they surrender all this property. And now you got the government in the business of running all these different rental properties and everything. What a hot mess it's going to be. They're incompetent. There's nothing that would give you any kind of, and should give you any kind of confidence that they will be able to run this and operate it. Socialists haven't run. The only thing they run is they run things into the ground. They don't run them into prosperity. There is no evidence. Go throughout history and show me some evidence where socialism has been successful. What they'll tell you is that we just didn't have enough money. We needed more time. That's what happens. That's their same old excuse. They're lousy when it comes to business and play this out. But these young kids who have been indoctrinated on free stuff, and I say the young kids, and I'd say the greater population, there's been a lot of just everyday Americans who are, living off the dole. And, because who doesn't like free stuff? but you've been deluded into thinking that this is what it's all about. And somehow you justify in your mind that, well, it's all those Jeff Bezos and this Elon Musk types making billions of dollars. And, that's my money and I should get some of that money. And so why should I feel guilty that I am, living off of government cheese and government handouts and that sort of thing? Well, this is what we've been reduced to, is we're looking to the government that says that they're the answer. They're going to take care of us. Really. In anything, even right now, in the situation that's happening in America, can you tell me where the government is being successful outside of maybe the military and a couple other minor organizations? But by and large, they're just not, even like with, the welfare, are they getting people off welfare? I mean, most Americans, believe that we could help people and give them a hand up. And we looked at it as an investment to help people, come out of their poverty and maybe a poor run in their lives, to lift them up, with dignity. And that's what most fair-minded, and this is what's happening, is America is fair-minded. We're reminded here recently during the World Cup, when you had all the Europeans coming here. And I keep saying it was like God had released all these de Tocquevilles, because de Tocqueville came here in the early 1800s because he was asked by the French, go check these knuckleheads out. What's the secret sauce, to these people. And so he's checking the highways and the byways of America. And his conclusion was he said that the American people, what makes them exceptional is they're good people. They're just good, hardworking people. That's the ethos. That's the heartbeat of we the people. Okay. And when we are happiest as individuals is when we're productive. Not when we're getting a handout, not when we're getting free stuff. But, our human nature, our compromised and fallen human nature, and by that I mean people who have turned from God, because if you're connected to God, that you can see this thing coming at you, miles away. But if you turn your back on God, you've turned your back on the truth, you're easily duped and deluded. And this is what's happened in the secularization of our country, when we are no longer a nation under God, which Ronald Reagan reminded us that a nation no longer under God will soon be done under. And it seems like we're going down that yellow brick road, but it requires the good people of America to take a stand and to push back. Can't allow 120,000 people, can't allow 80,000 people in Minneapolis to take over a state. But this is what's happening. So that it says something about the breakdown of our American ethos, so to speak. I mean, we've had over 1 million men and women pay the ultimate sacrifice. I'm a Marine, and I honor those. I honor those men and women who paid the ultimate sacrifice for us to have the country that we have today, with all its flaws and all the challenges that we have. But I honor them, and I'm thankful not only for them, but for their families that suffered a huge loss. And they paid that ultimate price. And to me, it's disgusting. And that's not even a hard enough word. I wish I could say exactly the depth of the disgust that I have in my very being, that we would allow this government, this great American idea, to be captured by arrogant, elite, greedy, self-thinking people, arrogant people, that we would allow them to come in and take over. This cannot happen, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to fight back. We've got to take a stand. We have to plant this flag to say no more. It's not going to happen. regardless of all the cheating and stuff that will go on, because unfortunately, and I will say this directly to you, the Democratic Party, and it's not in mass, but there's the apparatchik of the Democratic Party that has figured out the game, and they figured out how to cheat. And this is why they're so resistant to the Save American Act. Because the Save American Act, I mean, as one Democratic senator clearly said, she said that if the Save Act was to go through, we would never see another Democrat elected. Well, what does that say? I mean, that tells you, I mean, this is the thing. You see, I often say that cons self-indict. All you have to do is listen to what they say. And this is what she did. She self-indicted herself. This is what they believe. And the Democratic Party and the leadership of the Democratic Party, that if you had voter ID, if you did these things to maintain and hold to the integrity so that it was truly the consent of the governed, then Democrats would never get elected. Well, you know, Democrats would get elected, but they're going to have to alter their platform, and they're going to have to get in line with what the majority of American people want. The majority of American people don't want socialism. You know, right now, there's a lot of momentum in that direction, brought to you by the mainstream media and others. I mean, they're a very active part, and they've overcome, boy, they're like the blob. They've taken over that party. It's just amazing to me. And how, when the doors were opened up, how they came through and taken over that party. But look at the good people, the Tocqueville, that even the Europeans today who have gone back to their home to say, wow, those Americans, they're good people, you know. And socialists would not give you Buc-ee's. They would not give you In-N-Out. They would not give you Walmart. So, you know, socialism wouldn't create anything like that. You know, socialists are not creators. These are takers. And that's what you need to understand. This is the threat that's looming. Going back to this poll, income regarding income inequality. This is the fundamental change of America. 60%. And the Dems, 60% they believe the Democrats could handle income inequality. They're the ones that are making the move to say, look, okay, we're going to rob from the rich and give to the poor. You know, welcome Robin Hood. Government spending, they believe 51%. There's only a 3% margin here. They believe that the Democrats would be more responsible, 51 to 48% government spending. Foreign policy, this is a laugh. 53% believe that the Democrats would be better at foreign policy versus Republican policies. National security, Republicans went out of that by 2 points, but they still give Democrats a reasonable mark of 48% versus 50%. I think of this polling. I mean, this is so absurd, and all the things that the Democratic Party has done in compromising our national security, that it's this high is just beyond me. Immigration, pretty even, 50 to 49% regarding immigration. Regarding crime, 46% versus 53%. And of course, part of their manifesto is that, you know, the socialists, they want to get rid of jails. They want to defund police. I mean, we already went through that dance. You know, they want to rely on what they call, you know, some cultural warriors to come in and handle crime. Oh gosh, I mean, this is absurd on its face when you look at all that the Democratic Socialists have come out now, closet full born, after their meeting this past week, and said this is what we're about. You know, they want to defund the Pentagon. They want to pack the Supreme Court and take the Supreme Court along with the executive branch of government and make it subordinate to Congress. I mean, forget about three equal branches. They're rewriting the entire script, and this is what they want. They are anti-free market. You know, on and on. When you read these things, I mean, you think, really? I mean, for real, this is what they want to do. They want to pass aggressive wealth taxes on the richest individuals and corporations to spend on public goods and infrastructure. Okay, well, that worked for a season, but then again, you run out of money. But they're not looking about that. They're looking at the here and now and what they can do. It's just amazing when you look at all that the DSA stands for and what they want to do to this country. They want to absolutely dissemble this great idea, this great American idea. And what is their idea? It's an idea at the end of the day, just a little bit of critical thinking is all it takes. And you'll realize it cannot hold water. Well, we need to be an informed public. You cannot be a nonchalant voter. You've got to look into this. You got to do your homework. And if you're going to save this country, because it's going to be up to me and you, what kind of America we hand off to the next generation, what our grandkids and great-grandkids will be exposed to. That question was before the founders and before, the early revolutionaries of this great American idea. They put it all on the line. They put out, their reputations, their very lives, all that they had for the sake of freedom. And here we are. We're at that inflection point once again, where the question is being called: will the good-hearted Americans come together against this political disease? It really is a disease, and we need to nip it in the bud sooner than later. The fact that we're dealing with it now is because we didn't deal with it like we didn't deal with Iran 47 years ago. We didn't deal with this, but we need to deal with this once and for all, ladies and gentlemen. And if America is to continue to be the greatest country on God's green earth, then it's going to require we the people, the good-minded, the reasonable, we the people who believe in America, that believe in capitalism, because we've seen it work over the generations. It is what has built America and brought it to this point. We cannot allow this American dream to be stolen away from us. Well, that's going to be a wrap for us. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing a part of your day. For more information on the show, check it out, BillMartinezLive.com. May God bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you. May he be gracious unto you and give you peace. God bless you.